Hello, everyone, and welcome to this segment of the pros and cons of African and African Americans participating in COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial, brought to us by African Diaspora for Justice in conjunction with the great organization I am, Interfaith Action Movement. So at this time, we are going to get started. This segment of Tell Us What We Need to Know is brought to you by SCADEC Network International Promotion and Entertainment, SNIPE, Pitchy Time Lifestyle Magazine, SCADEC Media, SCADEC Television, a subsidiary of SCADEC Network International, Inc., SCADEC Empire. Thank you once again. We're going to officially start this program by inviting the Managing Director, City of Newark, Mayor Raj J. Baraka, Office of Clergy Affairs, Newark Interfaith Alliance. Please help me welcome our beloved Reverend Dr. Louis Scott Roundtree, the Bishop of Newark City, to help us opening this program with an invocation. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you to our Crown Prince, Dr. Prince. It is an honor and a privilege to come before this august body who will be going forth with a true forum of information and knowledge. And thank you for including me, Dr. Prince, and blessing these great men and women that will be imparting knowledge to those who will be tuning in. Let us pray. Dear God, we come before you on this day that you blessed us to see that we shall never see again. We thank you, oh God, because it's because of you we live and have our very being. And we thank you, oh God, for our dear beloved brother, Dr. Prince. We thank you for Dr. Elnahal, Diane Hill, Brooke Tippins, our dear Dr. Purnell, and all of the African Diaspora for Justice members, participants, and those who are tuned in to hear the pros and cons of Africans and African Americans participating in the COVID-19 vaccine clinical trials. God, we come because in your word you say we perish for the lack of knowledge. So as we invoke your presence into this platform on this evening, we put you before everything we say, everything we do, asking God for minds to be open, ears to be open, hearts to be open to the information that will be imparted into each and every one that is listening, that we will act accordingly to your direction. Now we thank you, oh God, for those who are gathered here on this day. And because you are already in the midst, we know it's going to be a great discussion, great information, and great knowledge imparted. Now we thank you, oh God, and ask your blessing upon each and every one that's speaking. We thank you, oh God, for Dr. Green, who will be coming after me. We thank you, oh God, for Diane Hill, making sure that the faith-based community is involved. And we thank you for the inclusivity of Dr. Prince, making sure that the African American and African community gets all of the information they possibly can to make the right decision. Now, God, I pray that you be in all of us to strengthen us on this forum, beneath all of us to support us, go before all of us to guide us. Continue to keep your angels encamped over us as our ancestors have already paved the way. We shall be careful not to let our mess get in the way of your message on this evening. Please hear this, your humble servant's prayer, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Allah, in the name of the one who some call Yahweh and Elohim, but you sure are our God and our creator. Amen, Amen, and Ashe.
Amen.
Thank you so much, dear Reverend.
Thank you, Dr. Prince.
Scott Roundtree. I purposely did not introduce myself because I want the prayer to go before me, before mentioning my name.
Yes.
So I am Prince Ezike Adekoya. I will be your host and moderator tonight while I still handle the engineering process of this. You're welcome. At this time, let us quickly listen to this short message by our beloved mother.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the great city of Newark and the great state of New Jersey. Certainly to our I Am family, which is the sponsor of a number of census events. It is my pleasure to share with you what they are and why it is so important. Derek Green, Reverend Dr. Derek Green, has been the stimulus in terms of making certain that everyone within our families and our extended families and friends are counted for the census. My purpose today is to share with you some important dates so that you can include them in your schedule. So, pastors, teachers, leaders, community leaders, you are all invited. This is very, very important. On September the 27th, we invite you to join us in the parks. We are going to have a different kind of census event. This will give you a chance to actually be a part of the census count. There will be census leaders, those who are involved in making sure that everyone is counted. Remember, the census only occurs once every 10 years. This year is our year. It is our year to make a difference. Remember, the census counts.
Thank you so much to our beloved Mother Crum, the Council President in New York City, and for that great message that you brought to us this evening, as we will be calling on our great leader, the senior advisor to Governor Phil Murphy, State of New Jersey, on diversity, faith, urban and regional growth, and the founder of Interfaith Action Movement, I Am. Please help me to welcome our beloved Reverend Dr. Derek Green to give us an opening remark. I can see our home beloved Dr. Green. So if he's not in the house, I will defer and call on a beloved sister that can always step in place for Dr. Green on this particular project and what we're here to do tonight. Please help me to welcome our beloved Dr. Diane Hill to just give us an opening remark while we wait on Dr. Green later.
First and foremost, I want to thank Dr. Prince, because just the concept of you understanding how we get this information to the community, to our I Am family, thank you for the support that you have given to make sure our community hears these messages. And I also want to thank our special own Reverend Roundtree, who is always in the forefront of making sure that our interfaith community is informed in a way that supports the community in the work that we continue to do. What we are doing today in this, and the importance of this session is, it really came out of the I Am sessions that we've had and the prayer that we have. And we know that it's important to give our community not only an understanding of what's happening, but more so to have direct access to the people that are doing this work, the experts that are there. And so this evening, that's what you have. They will introduce themselves, or, our own Dr. Prince will have them to introduce themselves. But what is important is that you get to know these individuals, these doctors that are doing this work, this wonderful work. But not only that, they're not here to recruit you for anything. They're here to help you to have a better understanding. And that's what our community deserves. They deserve to understand what is happening, how it's happening, and to have input. So Dr. Prince, I want to thank you for this partnership that is just the beginning of a long journey that we all have. But I just want to thank you and the IM family and all of you that are here for joining today. You're in for a wonderful evening of information. So thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, dear Dr. Hill. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Okay. At this time, we will come back later to hear from our own visionary Reverend Green as soon as he joins us. But for the meantime, we will go further by introducing our guest speakers tonight. So I will start by introducing the first guest speaker. I will do as much as I can to let you understand the person that is sitting before us tonight, willing to educate us about the vaccine trials, and also here to be with the Africans and African Americans, medical doctors, medical professionals, and community leaders to answer every single question that they may have regarding the pros and cons of the vaccine trial. So we will start by introducing to you at this time will be, just give me a second here. We will introduce our beloved Dr. Shereef Elnahal, President and CEO of University Hospital, Newark. Dr. Shereef Elnahal is President and CEO of University Hospital in Newark, New Jersey, largest safety net hospital with over 500 licensed beds and 738.2 million in patient service revenue. The hospital serves as the main academic medical center for Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School and the Rutgers School of Dental Medicine, both in Newark. Previously, Dr. Elnahal served as New Jersey's 21st Commissioner of Health. He joined the Department of Health, DOH, in January 2018 and quickly established a new vision for the department with specific goals: eradicating the opioid epidemic, decreasing maternal mortality and improving access to women's health care, reducing disparities in public health outcomes, increasing access to health coverage and mental health care, expanding the medicinal marijuana program, and expanding telehealth and interoperability. Women's health is key priority for Dr. Elnahal. Early in the administration of Governor Phil Murphy, the governor signed legislation restoring $7.5 million in DOH funding for family planning. Dr. Elnahal also directed funding for a new Healthy Women, Healthy Family initiative focused on increasing healthy birth and decreasing Black infant mortality in communities with the highest Black infant mortality rates. Dr. Elnahal also managed significant reforms in the medicinal marijuana program, reducing patients and caregiver registration fee, allowing dispensaries to add satellite locations and adding mobile access so that patients, caregivers, and physicians can register, make payments, and upload documents on their smartphones and tablets. Prior to his DOH nomination, Dr. Elnahal worked as a physician executive in the largest healthcare system in the country, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, as the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary for Health, for Quality, Safety, and Value. He managed a workforce of hundreds and a budget of more than 180 million. While serving at the VA, he was selected by then President Barack Obama as a White House Fellow in 2015. At the VA, he spearheaded unprecedented efforts around transparencies in access and performance, as well as standardizing best practice that prevents opioid dependency, improve women healthcare, and enhance access to care for veterans. He grew up in Atlantic County, and is the son of a doctor who migrated to New Jersey from Egypt. He received a dual degree, MD and MBA with distinction from Harvard University, and graduated summa cum laude with BA in biophysics from St. Johns Hopkins University. That is our first speaker. You will be hearing from a doctor with an established and resounding credentials. Secondly, I will be introducing our second speaker as well, who is a partner in this journey to help us understand the pros and cons of this vaccine trial. Our second guest is Dr. Shobha Swaminathan, Associate Professor, Division of Infectious Disease, Department of Medicine, Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, Medical Director of the Infectious Diseases Practice at University Hospital. Dr. Swaminathan is an Associate Professor of Medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, NJMS. She is the Clinical Research Site Leader for NIH-funded Clinical Trial Unit at Rutgers, NJMS, and is the Medical Director of the Infectious Disease Practice, IDP, at University Hospital, Newark, New Jersey. Dr. Swaminathan started her career at Rutgers NJMS in 2004 as Assistant Professor of Medicine. She developed a co-located HIV hepatitis C treatment center within the infectious disease practice. This one-stop shop care delivery has become the model for treatment of other comorbidities within the practice. In 2014, she became the medical director of the IDP. Under her leadership, the program has undergone significant expansion and now provide an umbrella of services that include medical case management, medical nutrition therapy, mental health and substance use treatment, support groups, and peer navigation. With state funding, she implemented an HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP program in the practice and has worked extensively with the community to ensure the program continues to provide key services to the community. In her role as site principal investigator for the Division of AIDS funded clinical research site, she has successfully implemented multiple NIH-funded HIV treatments and prevention studies at Rutgers NJMS. Under her direction, Rogers MJMS has become one of the leading sites for the enrollment of women and minority population. More recently, with the COVID-19 pandemic, Rogers MJMS is now an NIH-funded site for COVID treatments and prevention studies. The site will be launching multiple treatment and prevention studies for COVID-19, including COVID-19 vaccine studies, which is passionate about her work and continues to find ways to engage with the community to ensure that the clinical trials offered at the center reflects the needs of the community. Another amazing credentials experience. At this time, we will be welcoming our speaker to actually take us through what we're going to do. But before that, I want us to understand that the point of discussion tonight, is the pros and cons of Africans and African American participating in the COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial. To all our guests tonight, I will be asking that since we have the doctors in the house, the African-American doctors in the house, medical professionals, community leaders in the house, get your notepad, get your pen, as we're going to be hearing from our experts and professionals to take us through the journey, the pros and cons. At the end of their presentation, we will open up for Q&As, where I expect our professional to be professional, do their job, and ask a question about what is not clear and why they think we should and why they think we should not. So I will quickly yield and present to you our Dr. Shereef Elnahal to please come up now and take us through the journey, pro and cons of why we should participate in this clinical trial. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Dr. Elnahal. Take it over.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Prince, for bringing us together today. I also want to thank the African Diaspora for Justice, as well as the Interfaith Action Movement for all of the work that you do in the community, in addition to co-hosting this event, in particular on the census. Representing the community that we serve at University Hospital allows the hospital to better account for and treat our community if we count accurately, which means in higher numbers, because we have historic underrepresentation in the census. Those dollars flow to all sorts of things in the community, including healthcare, and of course also African community doctors and medical professionals who are with us today. I do want to thank Dr. Swaminathan as well, Dr. Hill, for being with us and co-hosting this event, Dr. Nyaku, who is involved in this work as well, and our very own Dr. Purnell, who's our Chief Strategic Integration and Health Equity Officer, and Brooke Tippins, who helped us get into this event as she does with all of our community engagement efforts. Thank you to all of you. I want to start with something that Dr. Prince started with, which is level setting on the goals for this session. I think all of us can agree that the more the community is informed about clinical studies that are occurring at University Hospital and Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, the better. This is an education, information session for folks. The goal is not, and I repeat, not to convince all of you as community leaders and people of influence in the community to recruit for any clinical trial, including the COVID-19 vaccine trial that happens to be happening at University Hospital, but rather be armed with the information and the intelligence regarding what's behind these studies and the general topic overall of University Hospital as an academic medical center and what that means for folks if they come to you with questions. And all of you have different spheres of influence. We know that your spheres of influence are large and cover a large part of our community. And that's why we felt it was extremely important to engage with all of you, in addition to the folks watching on Facebook Live. So let me start with an overview of what we are and what we mean by being an academic medical center. I will leave the specifics of the COVID-19 vaccine trial to Dr. Swaminathan and the Research with a Heart team, one of the best research teams in the country, I would argue, at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, with whom we work every day. But what an academic medical center does is not only does lab research and animal research, which is important for novel therapies, but also does something called clinical research, where you have something that has been proven or translated to be safe enough to proceed into human clinical trials. And you recruit folks to enroll in these trials to understand whether a therapy is safe and effective. Understand that the majority of medications that have been developed by pharmaceutical companies and any entity since the last several decades have gone through rigorous studies and trials that look and sound like the one that we are doing at University Hospital with COVID-19. And we are most importantly, a safety net institution, which will and does provide care to anybody regardless of ability to pay. And we have the most important part of our mission being our community mission. Everyone should meet my daughter, Jude. She just walked into the room. That's always a risk with Zooming at home. Good to see you, Jude. But it also means that we will, and as part of who we are as an academic medical center, be engaging in human trials, because it's important to understand whether novel therapeutics, whether they be vaccines or drugs that help us get through COVID-19, HIV, whatever the issue is, we have to do these trials to have a confidence that these agents actually work and that they are safe. So with that backdrop in mind, we have a very important mission to continue carrying that out, especially during COVID-19. And for context, University Hospital provided convalescent plasma therapy under a clinical trial, provided clinical trials for pregnant women who were affected with COVID-19 for different agents, and has done that in concert with hundreds of academic medical centers across the country who play this important role. I want to talk a little bit, just high level, about the clinical trial we're doing now without going to too many specifics, which Dr. Swaminathan would be much better poised to talk about. But just some big facts and information. The trial that we're doing now has activities in 88 other hospitals across the country. So we are one of 89 hospitals participating in this trial. The goal for enrollment is about 30,000 people across the country. And the vast majority of people who have enrolled are white Americans. In fact, it has been called out by scientists across the country, including Dr. Fauci, but also, importantly, in an op-ed by the presidents and major physician scientists of historically Black colleges and universities, that under-enrollment of African Americans in clinical trials like the COVID-19 vaccine trial we are doing risks not understanding whether something works or not in communities like ours, being a majority minority community that we are proud to serve. That has both epidemiologic issues in terms of what chronic conditions our community has versus other communities. In fact, the prevalence of conditions like diabetes, I have type 1 diabetes myself, but also high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease, other conditions that portend risk is much higher. And one of the reasons why it's important to study. But also, scientists have identified, including prominent Black physician scientists, that there are genetic and biological differences in response with Black and Brown Americans to any type of therapeutic, including vaccines. And that's why it's important to adequately represent what our country looks like in these clinical trials. Now, this discussion cannot be talked about or divorced from the horrific history of medical experimentation on the Black community in this country. We've had Dr. Purnell, as I mentioned, on our team at University Hospital, talk about her journey as somebody whose father passed away from COVID-19 and felt that being part of the solution, she would enroll in the clinical trial at our hospital. I am also enrolling and have already enrolled in the clinical trial in our hospital, which should hopefully signify the degree to which we believe that the data to date shows that there are no serious adverse events that have been noted yet in clinical trials, and that it is safe enough to be proceeding into the clinical trial stage. What I do want to emphasize, though, is that the history of the Tuskegee Airmen study, the history of Dr. Marion Sims experimenting with gynecologic surgeries on enslaved women, the history of Henrietta Lacks and her cells that were essentially stolen and used for medical research and medical therapies. All of those things are front of mind for our community. And understanding the important reasons why the trial that we're doing here for the COVID-19 vaccine, but also any trial that we do at University Hospital, has to be mindful of that history and be of the utmost quality and rigor when it comes to medical ethics and medical research. Couple of differences between the trial happening here and those horrific examples. Number one, informed consent is an important principle that's being followed, including a full account for the known risks and potential benefits for the therapy. In the Tuskegee, sorry, sweetheart, can you just give me a couple minutes? In the Tuskegee trial, people were intentionally lied to. They were intentionally lied to and told that they were being provided free health care by the federal government. Completely different from this. This is an experimental vaccine that is being disclosed, and the known risks and potential benefits are all outlined in the consent process. The second piece is that the Tuskegee trial literally followed a group of people, group of Black men who served this country in the military, with syphilis, and essentially tracked the natural history of syphilis, knowing that it would be harmful to, hey buddy, can you go, buddy? Thank you. Knowing that it would be harmful to people intentionally in this trial. And so that is the opposite of what we are doing with this trial. We are being transparent, and the study team, Research with the Heart, is being transparent that we don't know all the answers about what is being involved with this vaccine. And so in the con category, which is entirely legitimate, it is known that this is an experimental vaccine and that there may be new side effects that we are not aware of that are ultimately discovered in this stage of the trial. That is made clear, and it is a risk. And for folks who are not comfortable with that risk, they shouldn't enroll. And being aware that that's part of what we have to do as university hospitals, serve that academic medical center role, that includes understanding that in phase 3 trials that involve human beings, there may be side effects that are discovered. It is encouraging that with the tens of thousands of people enrolled already in various stages of this trial, that no serious adverse events have been detected, but that's not a guarantee, and it's important to communicate that. With that, I will pass it to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Swaminathan, to give you real information about the specific trial that's being conducted, and then we're happy to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc, as we look forward to hearing from Dr. Swaminathan at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green, Dr. Elnahal, Dr. Hill, and everyone for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to engage in what I hope will be an ongoing conversation and community discussion about COVID-19 vaccine trials, because there's one thing I can guarantee you: this one talk isn't going to answer all your questions, but I hope it will open the doors and give you and provide a space to continue to ask the right questions so you can get the information to make the right decision for yourself, your family, and your community. So, clinical trials, this and any other clinical trials emerge from a need to help address a health problem, be it high blood pressure, be it diabetes, HIV, or in this case, COVID-19. If it weren't for COVID-19, we wouldn't be doing these vaccines studies. We wouldn't be doing any clinical trials. But the fact of the matter is, within the past 6 months, COVID-19 has decimated our lives. Over 200,000 Americans have lost their lives. Everybody's stuck at home. Kids are homeschooling. Our senior citizens are afraid to get out of their house. People's lives have been upended in a way that I would never have imagined. So what is our role? What is our role as a scientific community to help the people and the patients and our community that we serve? What can we do to ultimately overcome this? While there are numerous different ways to address this, we will need medications to treat COVID-19, but we will also need to find ways to help prevent COVID-19, because that's the only way we can open up the community safely. And I can tell you for COVID-19, as with most other viral infections, vaccines are probably the best way in order for us to get there. So how do we get there? Because we currently do not have any vaccine that's proven to be safe or effective in preventing COVID-19. We get there by conducting clinical trials in a structured, safe environment that's closely monitored to ensure participant safety at all times, while at the same time making sure that the vaccine actually works. And you want to do that in a closely monitored setting so that before it gets to the market, before it gets out in the general public, we know as much as we could possibly know about the vaccine and any side effects before it hits the market. So the process for the clinical trials is really a stepwise. Even before it comes to human participants, there is usually preclinical data in the lab or in animal models to make sure that the vaccine possibly works, and also to look for any untoward side effects. Then you have early or phase 1 clinical trials where you administer the vaccine to a small group of healthy volunteers, typically about less than 100, to again monitor them closely for side effects and to see if the vaccine is effective. Then you increase that pool a little bit to a few hundred people in a phase 2 study, looking at different doses of the vaccine to see which dose might be the best, while at the same time looking at the safety profile and comparing any side effects in the group that got the vaccine versus the placebo. If and when those studies meet these thresholds for both safety and possible effectiveness is when you roll out into the phase 3 study. Phase 3 studies are the clinical trials that are typically conducted in large groups that are as closely representative of the population who might be affected by it, and followed for a long enough time to, again, prove that the vaccine that you're studying is going to work and that the side effects are going to be reasonably tolerable in such a way that the benefit from the vaccine would ultimately outweigh the risk. So and that's what we are currently offering. We are a site for the Moderna phase 3 COVID vaccine trial, which has a target enrollment of about 30,000 participants, and over 25,000 have already been enrolled as of last week. So the study is mostly enrolled. in terms of the demographics, as of 2 weeks ago, the study, about 51%, so just over half of the study population was white. 27% were Hispanic. There were only 13% were Black and 5% were Asians. So while there is some diversity, it clearly doesn't fully represent the US population, or ultimately who the vaccine will be offered to ultimately, if and when it's proven to be effective. And before I hand it over to my colleague, I just want to mention 2 things about monitoring, because I know that's in everybody's hearts and minds, and including mine, because before you do something, you want to, okay, what's the safety? It's like me sending my kids to the backyard or to the school. What safety measures do you have in place for them? Because without that, I'm not going to do that. So for clinical trials, before anything is rolled out, so the protocol is written, and then is reviewed by the institutional review board, at the institution and centrally at every hospital and institution where it's offered. There are usually typical people from the community who are also in the IRB to ensure that the study is held to the utmost, to the highest ethical standards. There is also an independent data safety and monitoring board that that meets at pre-specified time points, and they look at the data. They look at the number of side effects, if any, and the types of side effects that have been observed in the group that got the active vaccine or the placebo, again, to ensure that the benefits outweigh the risks. And this occurs consistently at every time point. And these safety measures are in place. And lastly, the study physicians, like people like myself and my colleague, we don't know who's getting the vaccine, who's getting the placebo or the inactive study product. But all we do is talk to participants at depth, make sure we get any side effects that they experience and then report it as such. Because that's the only way you can have unbiased reporting, because any side effect that a participant has gets reported, and then the data safety board reviews that evidence and then compares it. And this prevents any bias, because if I know person A gets a vaccine, then I'm more likely to report or underreport that, and vice versa. So this takes bias out of the picture and allows the science to be as independent as feasible. One of the questions that we, I think, have done a poor job of explaining is why do all communities need to be represented? Why do we need to have a diverse representation in clinical trials? I want to invite my colleague, Dr. Amasika Nayaku, and hopefully Dr. Parnell will also chime in after that. Dr. Nayaku has, works with me, and I will say is really my right-hand person when it comes to clinical trials. She submitted a really big grant, and so she was really busy until last week, and she emerged from the woodwork this week. So we are so glad to have you back with us. Dr. Nayaku's area of interest is really in the intersection of substance use disorder as it pertains to HIV treatment and prevention. So really focusing on the community that we serve, and really the underserved community. So maybe Dr. Nayaku, you could talk about why representation is critical in clinical trials.
First, I wanted to thank our magnificent hosts, as well as my co-presenters, for laying this fantastic context for us to talk about this very important issue of deciding the pros and cons of participation in research, and specifically around vaccine research. So like Dr. Swaminathan said, my name is Amasika Nayaku. I'm one of the infectious disease physicians. I'm also a physician scientist. So just a little bit of background about myself and my journey to this point is because I knew that I wanted to be a physician so that I could be able to provide high quality care to people who look like me. And as I was going through my training and my experiences, I came to see the importance of research for medical advances. So high quality healthcare comes first from research that has been conducted in a rigorous fashion and involves patients as well as communities to really understand what kind of healthcare works. And during my time as developing into a physician scientist, one of the things that I saw was, again, that people who look like me were not conducting that research necessarily, or were not participating in the research. And so as a part of the work that I've been doing and being able to join the Research with the Heart team was to be able to work to increase the representation of communities that have previously been mistreated, misrepresented, or excluded from research, to work to re-engage those communities. And we've already talked about that there have been significant abuses that have happened. And we've talked about some of the safeguards that have been put in place because of those abuses. And so now I want to talk more specifically about how why it matters to have diversity in this type of research. And when I say this type of research, it's about something that we have a healthcare crisis on our hands, right? We have this emerging pathogen, we have this novel virus no one knew anything about, and we see that that Black and Brown communities, our communities, are being disproportionately affected because the opportunity to work from home, to be able to socially distance, right, are not as available. And that is on the back of various social and structural racism that exists, right? And so many of us are essential workers. We don't have the luxury that we are able to stay at home and work remotely, but instead we have to interact face-to-face with individuals, and it puts us all at risk, right, of contracting a potentially deadly virus. So in what we see when we don't have representation in research that is diverse and represents the communities that are most affected, is that people are then what we call extrapolating. So making assumptions that because this treatment worked well in one group, that means it works the same in all groups. And we have done research studies before to understand that that may not be the case. And some of those, I think that some of the best examples is to understanding about the differences between sexes, between men and women, and cardiovascular disease. So a lot of studies were being done in men, and they thought, oh, that all of these things look the same for women, but it turns out that that's not the case, that there are differences. And similarly, in terms of when we talk about racial and ethnic groups, that there are differences both because of social, different social circumstances, different cultural circumstances, and then as we try and understand about the potential for different genetics and what that may look like, there are differences. So when we have studies that do not account for all of those potential differences that occur, the ability for us to feel that the data really can be applied to all groups is diminished. And so that's one of the big reasons for us as Researcher with a Heart for why we want to engage in these kinds of conversations and want people to consider participating in research. And so to more directly address the prompt, which was the pros and cons of participating in COVID vaccine research, first I want to say that we need to think about vaccine research because there's lots of different types of research. There's research that we call observational. So you come, we ask you questionnaires, maybe we draw some blood, and we don't do anything else, okay? So that type of observational, that's what we would call observational research. So perhaps that's the type of research that works for some people because maybe they don't want to take a vaccine or they don't want to take medicine, right? And then we can have research in which people take pills. And that can be, and that's a difference than if somebody gets a vaccine because maybe somebody doesn't like to get shots. So I think that those become important things to think about when a person is making a decision about participation in research, because not all research is the same and doesn't have the same requirements, right? It's very tailored to what kind of research that we're doing. So some of the other things about participating in this COVID vaccine research. So like Dr. Swaminathan said, not everybody is going to get the active vaccine. Some people are going to get the placebo. And we say it's saline water, or salt water, that's what we're calling the placebo. So some people don't want to participate in research in which they don't get the active ingredient. And so that might be a reason why you won't participate in research, because like Dr. Swaminathan said, you as the participant won't know whether or not you're getting the active versus the placebo, and neither will we as the investigators. Some other things that people have to consider when they're thinking about participating in research, in this COVID vaccine research. There's a possibility that this vaccine or any of the vaccines may not work. So even if a person gets the vaccine, it's not effective. And that's the reason why we're doing research. That's the ultimate question that we need to answer. And some people don't want to participate if it's not going to work, and that is fine. This is why we have to do the study, because we need to know what's going to work. This is not, I think it's important for us to understand that this is not treatment. Treatment is when we know something works, whereas this is research. And so for that reason, that uncertainty, people may not want to participate. I think one of the things that I do want to emphasize is that frequently people will talk about not wanting to be guinea pigs. And I think that, to me, when I hear something like that, I think about people. I hear that someone feels that we're not going to do something safely. We're not going to make sure that we protect people from being hurt by participating in research. And so what I would like to emphasize is that participation in research is not, you will not be treated like an animal. We're humans, and we respect and value the time that all the individuals that have volunteered, their willingness to do that. And so there are many study visits that happen where we come and we have you see us face to face so that we can monitor you. There's also we have a very extensive research team that is easy to get in contact with, and we'll do phone calls and different things like that. So there's a lot of monitoring that happens when you participate in any sort of research, be it this COVID vaccine research or any of the other types of research that we talked about. So definitely safety is very important. And then some people that may be watching may not be able to access our research site. And I do want to say that this is the standard across the board in how research is supposed to be conducted. And so, yes, my research site that I'm with Dr. Swaminathan with is, of course, that we are the best. But if you're unable to get to our research site, but there is another research site close to you, then that's the level of attention that you should expect when you're participating in research. And if, of course, you go somewhere and you're not necessarily feeling that care and attention is present, that's something important, and we always have to listen to our instincts. And so with that, I'm going to stop here because I definitely want to be able to answer any questions that have come through.
Well articulated. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yaku, for that detailed explanation. Of course, you know that you are in the midst of our fellow Africans and Africans Americans that are very curious about this clinical trial. We are explaining the pros and cons to other medical experts and medical professionals and community leaders in our community. And I am sure that they are here tonight, along with, I want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Nelson Aluye, Dr. Eniola Ugumefu, and so many other doctors that are on this call tonight and listening to yourself and Dr. Swaminathan and our first speaker, Dr. Shereef Elnahal. So I'm sure that you guys have given us more information within your ability. And I also want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Parnell from the same University Hospital here tonight and them pouring into us. I don't know if Dr. Parnell will want to say one or two things before we dive into our Q&A, because I know there are people that's got questions for us on this platform tonight. So if Dr. Parnell wants to say something, I mean, we'll be glad to have him for a few minutes before we go into our Q&A.
Thank you, Reverend Doctor. I'll just cede the time so we can definitely get to people's questions. I think
Thank you.
Dr. Elnahal, Swaminathan, and Yaku did an excellent job of laying the groundwork, and I'll chime in where possible in the discussion.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Parnell, for that. So at this time, I'm going to diplomatically unmute our guest on this platform. We'll try to take questions accordingly. But before we go into that, I would like to say to all our guests that we have to be very civil in our approach on how we want to ask our question today. And we want to be brief and go directly to the question so that we will be able to accommodate as many questions as needed from all our professionals here tonight. So let me get ready to unmute. If I see the hand raised, please, if you have a questions or comment, please indicate by raising your hand on the chart, and we are going to unmute you, and you can ask your questions, and we just take it one time, one at a time like that, so that we can have all our questions answered here tonight. The objective is to understand why we should, we should be part of this clinical trial. So I will start by, let me quickly check who we have raising hands. So we are going to take Dr. Eniola. I think he indicated his hand. So let me find Dr. Eniola and we can unmute you so that you can go ahead with your question. But if you have opportunity, let me see here, please bear with me. And we can go from here. Dr. Eniola. I think I saw him a few minutes ago. I hope he's still on. And
yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eniola. Thank you for coming on. Okay, we can hear from you if you have questions for our expert, whom we are very well familiar with. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks. I really appreciate the presentations, all the presenters. They have said really, very wonderful things, and also being able to go out there to really help us to get some of these projects into our neighborhoods. That's really a good thing. Just historically, I was involved in Ryan-White funding for HIV projects with City of Newark, about more than 20 years ago in HIV, and also work on infectious disease. But now I'm in the pharmaceutical industry, But so I have about 2 or 3 questions. One of the challenges that I've observed in our community, especially the minority communities, look, using Newark as an example, is that most of our people don't really want to participate in clinical trials. And one is because they have more trust in the physicians who are treating them. And some of these physicians are also African Americans. But in clinical trials, most of the PIs or co-investigators are not really from the community. They're mostly from the academic environment. So one question I want to ask is there a possibility through which this panel can engage the doctors who are really serving the community at the clinic level as possibly as co-investigators? And I think that would really help to bring more patients into these clinical trials, especially with COVID-19. To be honest with you, Newark is home to me, although I don't live in Newark now anymore, but it's home to me. And I'm saying this is one of the challenges. Then two, the doctors, they also have some kind of concern that when you refer a patient for clinical trials to some of these bigger medical centers, the patients, they don't like to come back to them. That's another challenge. So how would they deal with all these situations? And I think in dealing with them, that would be an advantage to really get a lot of patients. Then two, I think there should be an advocacy engagement group that will at the community level, using the, through the participation of the different physicians who are really treating people at the local level, not at the major hospitals level. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your comments. And you're absolutely right, because patients and participants will feel more comfortable participating in clinical trials or even going to see doctors when they say people who look like them and come from their own experience, because then there is an innate feeling of trust. Because as you said, we are human beings. When you see people who look like you, who have had similar life experiences, when they say something, we have an inborn tendency to, trust them more and to relate with them, because that they have been in your shoes, or they have, at some point in the past. And I think we have to continue to do everything we can to increase that involvement. Our clinical team, I will say, is quite is diverse, but I think we have to continue to involve more physicians and have more community involvement, and continue to embolden and empower the community, and have, consumer advisory boards. We do have Research with the Heart does have a community research focused consumer advisory board that's open. If anybody's interested, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Research with the Heart, and say you want to be part of the advisory board, because we do want the community input. We've had this board for about 15 years at this point, and it is growing in a large part because we do understand that any clinical trial we do must address questions that are of importance to the community and that the community feels is useful to them. Just because the scientists feel that question A is important doesn't make sense to conduct it, in Newark or whatever community, unless the community thinks, yes, we want this question answered for us because we are impacted by this, because we want to ask, answers to those questions. So you're absolutely right. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to anything I've said.
Yes, I'd like to add to that, Dr. Swaminathan. I think that's what's missing. That's the critical piece that we all can double down on, is that sharing power with community. And sharing power looks like sharing access, sharing opportunity, and sharing information. The sooner and the more authentic we can have community as co-researchers, helping us to establish those priorities, helping to say, these are the issues that are important to me, my family, my household. I think we can get investment from community and an academic medical center in bettering the well-being and outcomes for all of our folks, right? And I think that's really the one way that we can begin to turn the tide on the centuries of mistrust, right? Give people another option, give them an option to trust, and empowering community or sharing power with community is a way to do that. And as Dr. Swaminathan has mentioned, this is why at University Hospital it's so important for us to come before community and to create these safe spaces for constructive dialogue, and looking to take that to the next step, even with our Community Advisory Council out of our Community Oversight Board, and looking even further to the future to say, what are those vehicles or what are those assets in community that we can amplify around issues of clinical research and more broadly around care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purnell. Thank you for that explanation. So now let's take another question from our own doctor, Dr. Nessin Aluya. Please come in, sir.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. I must say a big thank you for everybody to come on tonight. I see, familiar faces and some of the faces I haven't seen in a long, long time. And I'm glad you're all here. And like I always say, you find time for the things that are important to you. And that's why on a Thursday night like this, you all found the time to come on. Because this is important to us. And I mean, you all have said it rightly. The issues that have been plaguing the community with regards to, century of mistrust and, communication, as a matter of fact. There's been a big fault lines that's been between, just like Dr. Ogumefo said, the research or academic community, physicians, and those in the community as well. So, and I think one of the reasons why we're having this is to find ways to mend those gaps, find ways to amend, build bridges against those gaps. Um, I know research and all the stuff that has been done. I mean, I'm still part of university. I only left about a year ago after a couple of years. And I know how things have been done. But one thing I must say is this. COVID-19 is different. It's novel. It's something we've never seen before. It's upturned our lives and has changed things the way they used to be. So research, in as much as we continue to, hammer down on the typical practice of it, there are other social aspects that needs to be handled, that needs to be addressed as well. And because I'm glad that most of the people who are doing this research look like me or sound like me, and I know they'll have my interest or represent my community at heart as well. So and that's one of the things we're looking forward to as we encourage other young ones to go into medicine and go into research. So my statement or question would be, we should find ways of bridging that gap between the community doctors and those in academia, because most doctors in the community know the patients more than the ones in the academia, predominantly, and there's a whole issue of trust here. Because if I go to my doctor and I say, you know what, there's this vaccine that's coming out, should I take it? If my doctor says no, he doesn't trust, he doesn't know about it, then most likely I will not. So, but if he says, convinces me that I should, then I will most likely do it. So in order to increase the number of people of color, especially, those of African descent into research, I think as grants come out and ways, as money is put aside or funds put aside, for the actual, bench research and all that, they should also, I'm sure they do, but increase the community physician access. So maybe that's a branch that has to be brought into this as well. Creating a division for physician access in reaching out to those physicians so that we can increase the number of those who of color into research. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Aloya. I am sure that our experts understand where you're coming from. I think a very important point on this segment of the pros and cons of the COVID vaccine trial. I'm glad that Dr. Elnahal specifically made it clear that this call is not to get anyone to participate in the trial, but to inform the communities why it is necessary and why they should be part of it, which means after being informed about this trial, you have the utmost right to decide for yourself based on the information that is being disseminated And based on your understanding and probably the question that you pose to the professionals, you'll be able to make a decision if it's right for you or not. However, for a successful vaccine in our community, most especially in motherland Africa, because whatever happened here on this part of the shore is what transcends to across the shore, the other side of the continent. The same things will be given to our people back home. So we have to, one way or the other, be part of it to find out. That's why I really cherish the question by our first medical expert, asking the opportunity to be part of this researcher so that we can have in-depth knowledge and know what's going on there, and by so doing, be able to inform the community accordingly. And I think an olive tree was extended to him that hopefully that he can reach out to the office. I hope something like that will start to form itself so that we will be involved. We won't be hearing from people outside our community or outside our race to tell us what's going on, learning from past experience. I think I am honored, I'm humbled to have the opportunity to witness this in our community today. So I'm looking forward to more questions from our professionals, community leaders, and our doctors that are on the platform. And if there is no further questions, then if any of our expert has more expatiation to do on that for the next few minutes that we have, you are welcome at this time. But from my end here, I'm not seeing any indication of questions or anyone raising hand at this point in time. But if you're on the platform and you're listening to this and you still want to ask questions, you are free to do so. But I will acknowledge that I did enjoy the question of Dr. Elnahal once again. So hopefully that we hit homes with this team and be able to work more closely with our community professionals. So there is no further question. I think
this is Pastor Michael. I have a question.
Okay, Dr. Michael. Okay, let's take Dr. Michael now. Please ask your question, followed by Dr. Elnahal once again. Pastor Michael, go ahead with your question, sir.
Good evening, members of this panel. My name is Pastor Michael from Graceland Gospel Church in Newark. Assuming that somebody participate in this clinical trial, and it happened that one way or the other, it got not the placebo, but it got the deal, and it got infected. For how long, and what are the things that the hospital will do for such a person? For how long will they be able to treat him? And for how long will they be able to support him?
So just to be clear, this vaccine, people are not injected with the virus itself. So this by getting this vaccine will not cause COVID-19. I know there are some vaccines where giving the vaccine involves making the virus a little milder or killing it or giving it, inactivating the virus. This particular vaccine is different in that you cannot and will not get COVID-19 from the vaccine itself. The vaccine is really very small molecular particle. It's a messenger RNA-based vaccine, so it's really a small genetic code that teaches the host to produce antibodies to help fight COVID-19 infections. In general, side effects that have been observed in the clinical trials have been, for the most part, mild to moderate, and have involved, fever, maybe fatigue, arm soreness, redness, those kinds of mild to moderate. There have been no significant serious adverse events that have been identified thus far. And we stay in close contact with all our participants, and to closely monitor them. They're actually given a diary to track all their symptoms so that we can help them, get over, or so we can make sure that that they are safe and nothing serious is happening to them.
Thank you. Thank
Can I
you
just
so
say
much,
also,
Dr.
Dr.
And
Prince
thank you. Go ahead,
and
sir.
Pastor Mike. So I just want to double down on how important the previous point was on making sure that the community doctors that people trust are involved in this process from start to finish. And I'm not just talking about, communicating about clinical trials. I'm talking about everything, all of the messaging that we need to be delivering to keep people safe in this pandemic. They need to wear masks. They need to engage in frequent hand hygiene. They need to socially distance. All these things are better taken when people who are trusted, who you've already trusted with your care, literally your life, are repeating these messages. This is a tough time, folks, to be on social media, to be on Facebook, to be on Twitter, and to see all of the, not only misinformation, which is just wrong information, but disinformation, information that is designed to manipulate and guide you to a bad place. The fact that, for example, Russian actors are not only trying to help a certain person get reelected president, but spreading information that is against even childhood vaccinations that have been proven and proven safe over the years. They're doing that because they know that it will destabilize this country. They're doing that because they know it will hurt this country. The fact that folks are spreading that disinformation in the context of some kind of political message or polarization, folks, this has nothing to do with politics. And I know that it gets confusing because, there are reports that the White House is inappropriately trying to influence the CDC, the FDA, et cetera. I just want to draw a very stark contrast with the science that Dr. Swaminathan and Dr. Nyaku and Research with a Heart are doing, which is intellectually honest, rigorous, transparent science that will report the results, whatever they are, versus a decision on whether or not to approve something that may not be ready for approval that is pounded by the White House through political influence. We are keenly aware of that possibility that's already being widely discussed. And we as a team, and I say that very honestly, University Hospital, Rutgers New Jersey Med School, the research team at Rutgers, we are a team in this pandemic. We say that we would be the first to call out whether we thought that that political influence was driving the wrong decision when it comes to vaccines or any other topic. But I will tell you, this is an era where disinformation, unfortunately, is dominating the airwaves. And the only way we're going to combat that is by taking the people who are already trusted. In this space, most importantly, primary care and frontline physicians who already see so many people in our community, and empowering them with the information that they need to protect public health and to protect the public. But there isn't a more dangerous thread of disinformation that's going on right now than this general idea that vaccines are designed to control people, that they're implanting microchips into people. I mean, this is the type of ridiculous information that's being spread around, not just social media, but our community. And what I'll implore everybody on this call to do is, whenever you hear something that sounds outrageous, come to us and ask the question. We are willing and ready to take questions on anything you hear, whether it's about the COVID-19 vaccine trial or any other element of public health messaging that we're trying to promote to protect you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Elnahal. At this time, I think Dr. Eniola has a question, and he has his hands up. Can you please go ahead and ask your question, Dr. Eniola? Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for the comments. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I was able to identify more than 20 years ago, which I've not really been able to see be implemented, in Newark, even through the city of Newark, not because they did not want to do it, but because there's some kind of pushback, from I'm not trying to bring the big medical centers on the spot or trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to be factual and trying to bring solution to the problem. So there's been a bit of resistance from some of these big medical centers. So I would say that if you really want to move forward realistically, really getting people engaged, especially minorities, with this issue of COVID-19 vaccine project, I think there's a need for advocacy engagement group or consortium, which I think a lot of us here, we go to church, we attend churches in Newark, in East Orange, in, just Essex County as a whole. So Dr. Aluya is also very close to the community. And I think if people like that are empowered to be able to be, advocate, involved in advocacy, engagement, capacity, I think it will be much easier and much better to really get a lot of minorities into the clinical trials.
You're absolutely right, if I may just add, because representation is everything. So, and representation, not just for participation in the clinical trial, but representation in leadership, representation in scientific, concept formation, representation in the implementation development. So, and all of those, community cannot be an afterthought. Community needs to be the first to be when the process is started. So then from the get-go, they are part of the process and are engaged, and they help develop whatever it is that you're developing to ensure that when it gets implemented in the community, it is right for them. So you're absolutely right. We should, while we have done some, we need to continue to do a better job of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to add one thought to that. That's an asset-informed approach, right? And assets are not only monetary resources or structural resources. Assets are lived experiences, are persons with certain skill sets. And that's what I'm talking about, that sharing of power, right? So community physicians are one of the assets in community that we need to have that symbiotic relationship with. And there are other stakeholder groups. And the more that we can think about, and I've been really giving a lot of thought to this, how we could form some collaborative, right? That regularly allows for conversation and dialogue across various issues, whether it's issues around disease prevention or health promotion, whether it's issues around the structural determinants that impact health outcomes, whether it's issues around academic medical centers and clinical research. We need to have that bi-directional communication where all of us are around the same table, and there are models of that approach that. There are some community participatory action research models, but we can think about distinguishing ourselves in this region by coming together and forming that, having research with the heart at the table, having University Hospital at the table, having community physicians at the table. So we at University Hospital are definitely game for that, for building that new lane, that new way of, I'll say greater than healthcare delivery, but health activism, right? So that people can make informed choices and decisions.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'd just like to piggyback off of that, because that's so important. Those are the kinds of techniques that we need to begin at the early process of when we're building proposals and things that would help to benefit the community, that we partner at those beginning levels. And so as you've heard from, the hospital and the medical school, you'll also be hearing more about how we're building those, what I call bridges to the community, where we're starting early on to look at what are the issues in the community, but more so than that, how can we address it collectively as true partners that respect each other, understand there is expertise, and this is where a lot of the expertise is coming from. It's going to come from us collectively working together. So again, I want to thank you, Dr. Prince, because this is so meaningful. And I know for a fact, as part of the I Am family, that we will be talking and working on some new strategies. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Hill. Thank you so much. Let us hear from Dr. Aluya at this time. I think he has a question for you guys.
Well, thank you so much once again. I mean, just like Dr. Swaminathan had just so eloquently said, and even the CEO as well. I'm really very impressed, and I'm glad that you guys, you're all willing to listen to this and receptive of the fact that, there are ways we can bridge the gaps here. The community should not be the afterthought, but the right in the beginning and the process of the whole thing. Now, I'm here in my capacity as a community person, as a community leader, and also as the chairman of the Nigerian Physician Association in the state of New Jersey. I'm also the president of the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee, and I was also the president of the New Jersey Medical Association. So one of the ways we can begin to do this is reaching out to heads of these institutions, these organizations. They're here. I mean, Dr. Bay was here. Dr. Damali, who's now the president of the New Jersey Medical Association, was on. I could see her. Dr. Bay, who's a community medical advocate and has done extensive work and has a program online that teaches issues on even the COVID itself. There's the Ghanaian Medical Association with Dr. Badu, who I know, and invited all of them. So that's one of the ways we can begin to start the discussion, reaching out to associations, leaders, and other stakeholders as well, so we can, continue with the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aluya, for that generous invitation to our experts tonight. You as a person, we know that you're such a tremendous leader in our community, in medical advocacy, human rights, and women's rights. It's something that you are passionate about. And I know that you continue to represent us and stand for us when it comes to medical issues and things of that nature. You are a champion, and congratulations on your award from the great borough of Brooklyn by, I think, the borough president, Eric Adams, for your impact and input on the coronavirus endeavors. Thank you so much. We congratulate you for that. So at this time, if there is no further questions from the community, I will consider this to mean that our experts eloquently delivered their message, and they left us with the option of deciding if this is for us or not. Based on what we have heard tonight, I think we can gladly return back to our community and educate some of the people that have no idea of what's going on. We can educate them, enlighten them about why not we should be part of this COVID vaccine trial. So I am humbled and honored to have received the presence of all our professionals. Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. Thank you so much, Dr. Yaku. Thank you, Dr. Brooks, Brooke Tickpins, and thank you, Dr. Shereef Elnahal and Dr. Shobha Swaminathan for all the great work that you guys are doing in our community. Of course, this is just the first segment and it's just the beginning. I am glad to even know that our own community activist, Dr. Nelson Aluya, has very good relationship with you guys. So obviously we're some way, somehow in a safe hand, if I may say so. And I also would like to thank our own dear Reverend Dr. Derek Green for his leadership and all that he does for the I Am organization and bringing leaders of the community together for the betterment of humanity. And he is such a reckoning force and a wonderful man that cares about his people. And we will always treasure that. Of course, we have some of our pastors on this call. We have Pastor Mike that has asked a very intelligent question. So also we have our own bishop in the house, Reverend Dr. Tony Laoye. She was also with us. And I think she had heard so much from you guys, and I believe that she's confident enough that we are getting the right information from you, and we will do what we have to do as a community leader to bring this to our community and educate them. But I will want to let you guys know that he doesn't just stop here in United States or in our community. It also traveled far back to Africa, because whatever happened here to Black and brown people also happen in the continent, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in the other part of North America, whether it's Mexico, whether it's El Salvador or Haiti or Jamaica or Africa continent. You know, we still want people, and we just have to be very careful and definitely understand what we are partaking in and what we are doing to make life better for every one of us and our family at large. So at this juncture, I would like to actually thank every one of you tonight. So if there is no other questions, contribution, I think we can move on. But before that, I will give all our speakers just a 30 seconds bite that you're going to leave us with tonight, so that we can remember you with your last statement. Go ahead, all our speakers, say something for us today, and let's bring it to a close.
I just want to say, we're going to get it right. We're going to keep trying to get it right. And you know, Dr. Prince, I'm going to encourage you and the whole community to work with us to do it right. And I want to thank you all. So I'm going to leave you with the words that we're getting it right, we're working on it, and we're going to join these partnerships and bring some of that resources to our community so that we are working collectively. So that's what I'm going to promise you.
Here's what I would offer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. Go ahead, Dr. Elnahal.
You know, first of all, thank you, Reverend Dr. Prince, and to everybody who helped host today. These forums are so important, as we've been talking about. The one thing I'll leave with folks is trust your better judgment and be informed and take power in being informed to help the community. I think if you really take the time to engage folks, not just in this forum, but in any forum, about what clinical trials are, what the modern standards are for those trials, what not only the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine trial looks like, but the other vaccine trials look like, what the NIH's role is, and what we're trying to do as an academic medical center. I know that if folks are empowered with knowledge and information, they will both realize that this is an important effort, even if they're not comfortable enrolling themselves or their family members, which is completely legitimate, but they'll realize the value of folks who are willing to be part of the solution and enrolling in trials like this and in really any other trial. They'll recognize the history of terrible medical experimentation in the Black community and understand why this is different and how this is different. And they'll understand that because this pandemic has hit communities like ours worse than almost any other type of community, that we stand to benefit, our community stands to benefit, the people we serve stand to benefit if there is an effective vaccine that is discovered throughout this process. And I know that if folks do their homework, this is an informed community, it's a knowledgeable community. This is a community that has done their homework. And all I'm asking is for folks to, when they hear, especially disinformation, information that doesn't sound right or sounds, you know, out of whack, I know that if you do your due diligence and take that truth to power and understand what is happening and the stakes ahead of us in this pandemic, because we're not out of it, by the way. Just because things are better now does not mean they can't get worse this fall, especially as we have the flu on our heels, which is why it's important to get the flu vaccination as well. But all of that portends risk in the future unless people are informed. And I know that folks, if they're armed with the information, will be able to make sure this community is better off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elnahal. So let's hear from any of our other experts on the platform tonight.
First of all, thank you, Reverend Dr. Prince, and everybody who on this call for giving us this opportunity. Nothing good has come out of COVID. COVID has divided us even more than we thought possible. has left many of us feeling isolated and lonely and depressed. But I will say it has also given us, my team, myself, Research with the Heart, the opportunity to meet new people, to strengthen connections that we already had, and forge new ones, like with this group, with the IM group, and then realize that in this sense of community, in this sense of togetherness, by banding together, by all of us coming together, is the only way we can successfully overcome this pandemic and ultimately emerge a better, stronger community. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swaminathan, and we really appreciate all that you guys have brought to this, and new Rogers Medical Centers. You guys showed up and show up well and able to satisfy our people. So let's hear from Dr. Yaku before we bring it to a close. Thank you.
It's hard to be the last person to speak, so I'll keep it brief. I think that the messages that came out of this session are really about how we need to continue to forge new pathways. And one of the things that for our research group, and has been already talked about for University Hospital, is that we're about being responsive to what is identified as the need. And so this is very exciting, the prospects of like Dr. Swaminathan said, the new relationships that will be developed as a result, so that we can continue to engage in greater collaborations. And I think that and from these collaborations, we will be able to continue to right the historical wrongs that have been done, because research is ultimately a choice and provides valuable information that helps advance healthcare and overall community health. And I know that that's the goal for all the individuals that are participating, and also for those that may be listening. And so this is a very, very, very exciting time, and I'm very happy to have been invited to come and participate.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yaku. So at this time, before we bring this to a final closure, can we please invite our own Reverend Dr. Lauye, if she's still on the call, to just give us a short closing remark and round it up with a prayer. Dr. Lauye, please.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Once again, I want to appreciate the convener, Dr. Adekoya, and all the speakers. Good job. And I really want to thank God that we're able to come together to discuss this pertinent issue that is ravaging the global community. And thank you for promoting the flu. I have started asking my people to go get the flu. You don't want to combine influenza with COVID. So we are driving the community now to get their flu shot. But most importantly, I know that God is the great physician.
Amen.
He's the custodian of all knowledge. He's the custodian of all wisdom. And nothing is too difficult for him. We are trusting God for supernatural breakthrough in science and in the research. I pray that there will be a breakthrough.
Amen.
On that note, shall we just say a word of prayer to end? Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the privilege and the honor to gather tonight to discuss about issues that affect us. But most importantly, we want to thank you for the panelists, the doctors that have done their presentation tonight. We pray for them, Lord, that even as they embark on this research, there will be more breakthrough.
Amen.
The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. There's nothing that is happening here that is stretch. I ask for supernatural, divine intervention and breakthrough. That this fall season will not make our health and our well-being to diminish in the name of Jesus. Thank you for the convener. I pray for more grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, our own dear Bishop Laoye. We thank you for your support. We thank you for all that you do in the African community. So at this juncture, we will say thank you to all our guest speakers, our medical experts, and thank you to our community leaders that have come together to bring this vital information to our people, hoping that we will continue to benefit from things of this nature, because knowledge is everything. If we have the adequate knowledge and the right information, the Black race will thrive and humanity will live in harmony and be better. So the distrust in our community is one thing that we have to eliminate. Thank you all for coming, and we appreciate you as we look forward to more partnership. Thank you, and get home safe, everyone. Good night. From SkyDeck Network International, I'm your host, Dr. Prince Ezike Arikoya. Good night to everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Dr. Aluya. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone. Good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rob. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again. Thank you.